This is going to be part 2 of how to make a Sonic.EXE game in Clickteam Fusion. In this video, I will go over how to make the Sonic 1 title screen and get your EXE to flash in there a bit so that way people know that the game is screwed up. In this tutorial, I'm just going to be using some Sonic.EXE sprites I found online, but obviously if you have your own, then you can use those as well. I'm not going to do the exact same thing as the original Sonic.EXE game, as I will add a little bit of twist to it just to spice it up a little bit, but I'm not going to do a lot to it, just kind of try to keep it basic. So here's a quick clip of what the final result will be. There are going to be 4 different sprite sheets you're going to need for this. All of them will be linked in the description below. Anyways, let's begin. So here we are in our Sonic.EXE fan game that we made last time. Here, actually, the first video we made it. The last time what we did is created the sky effect here from one last round and put it onto here. If you want to do this, then go check out that previous video there. And you can see here there is a Sonic 1 title thing here because I had done this before already. So you can see there's I'll zoom out, you can see some of the sprite sheets we're going to need. But I'll do it all from scratch just to make it easier for you all. So obviously you want to create a new frame, so the best way to do that is go into here and then click here and you'll create a new frame. Obviously depending on how many frames you have, that'll depend on where the button is. So I'll just call this one Sonic Intro since Sonic 1 title was already taken. So there are 4 different sprite sheets we're going to need for this. I'm going to zoom in a bit. There are 4 different sprite sheets we're going to need. 1 of the Sonic 1 title with the panel and stuff, 2 of Green Hill so that way we can have a background, and 3 of Sonic.EXE. But there are 2 different Sonic.EXE sprites I'm going to use for this. I'll give you all a quick look at the sprite sheets we're going to be using. We're going to be using this one here, so that way we can get the Sonic.EXE finger waving, the background, and the title screen with the Sega 666 and all screwed up and stuff. The next sprite sheet we're going to be using is a Green Hill sprite sheet, so you can see this also has some extra sprites too, but we just need these ones here for Green Hill. Mainly really just the background here, and the water, which is down here, and then possibly the waterfalls if you have waterfalls in your background. If you don't, like say you pick these 3 and then don't do this one, then you don't need the waterfalls, but if you do end up having them, then you will have to use these. And then this sprite sheet here for the Sonic 1 title screen. And I know that they provide a sprite here, but you can see the water is all pinkish here, and I don't want to take all the time to recolor all that. So I'm just going to do it the other way and get another sprite sheet. So you can see the way Sonic will be coming up, we'll be doing it frame by frame, which usually I'm pretty sure in the original Sonic it's an object that moves on a path, but in here it's just sprite sheets of him coming up. Now these down here we don't really need. This you could use if you want to have a screen beforehand of Sonic Team Presents or possibly your name and then Presents. But we're mainly just going to be using these up here. So let's get our first sprite sheet, which would be the Green Hill background. So here I'm going to get Green Hill. Now this sprite sheet here, in this sprite sheet the background color is this right here. So we're going to select that, and it's a massive sprite sheet, so try to also you need to change it to transparency color, because for some reason it sets itself to alpha channel, but you want that to be transparency color. So we only need the Green Hill. Actually, we don't even need the tiles actually, now that I think about it. Yeah, we only need these backgrounds here. This background here gets a little screwed up when you switch from alpha to transparent, so we gotta use this one instead. So I'm just going to crop out the sheet to only what we need, just because it saves more room for everything else. So just like that, because we only need the water here. If you have waterfalls in the background, you'll need these. And then going up here, you'll need these obviously for the background as well. So before we move on to putting in other sprite sheets, we're going to worry about adding the background here. So what you want to do is right click, clone object, okay. So now we have a clone of this, so we don't want to affect the original. So let's get the Green Hill background here first. So you can use any one of these tiles you want, in any order you want, as long as they look right together, which they were made to usually look okay together, but usually this is the order they should look in. So I'm going to pick from here to, you know what, I'm just going to do the whole thing. You don't have to do the whole thing. It's just if you do, then it will kind of get repetitive on itself. So if you want your EXE game to be quality, then maybe do the whole thing if you're using this sprite sheet, but if not, then that's okay. Saves time. So what we'll have to do now is drag all of these together because these little things are in the way. So you're gonna have to grab each image on the edge one by one and then just use the arrow keys to drag it in, so that way they're right up against each other. And they should lay well against each other because of how these were made, and they do so far, and I selected that wrong. So once you drag them all in together, you just want to crop them here like that, so that way they're all together here. And then we want to set the transparency color to this right here, which is where the water is going to go. Now you might be asking, why can't we just cut it off? And why can't we just cut it off right now? Because you'll notice that it's not perfectly flat under here, which adds to the illusion of the water really being in there with the land. Also set the, what's it called, hotspot point to the center here. And usually the sprites will like to send themselves off, so you might have to zoom out a ton to go find them. So now here we have the green hill background, and we can just drag it onto there. You can put it at whatever height you want, but try to keep it around the middle like this, so that way it looks accurate to the original. Now we want the water. So let's clone this object here. And then let's go all the way down and get to the water. And like before, just kind of select them all, because we're going to need all of these for an animation. And I left a little edge there off, so I'm gonna bring that in real quick. So this one we don't actually want to just drag them all together, because these are frames for the animation of the water. So what we actually want to do is copy this 4 times, and then for each one crop out the water that we need for that frame. And make sure you do it the same exact size for each one, or else the animation is going to look weird. And you can crop it all the way down for this one. So once we've gotten all the frames here, if we try to play it, you will notice it's pretty messed up. Why? Because all the hotspots are scattered all over the place, so it doesn't know where the heck everything is. So what we want to do is go to View Hotspot and press the center, and usually you'd have to do that for each frame. Now I know there's not a lot of frames here, but a trick to make that go quicker is hold Alt and then select the spot you want the hotspot to be, and it applies it to every frame. Obviously there was only 4 frames here, so it wasn't really a lot, and I could have done all of it myself. But if you've got a lot of frames, in fact for any, no matter what game you're making, for any animation, if you have a ton of frames and you gotta change the hotspot for all of them all at once, then just hold Alt, select, and it'll all apply to everything. So now if we play, it'll play, but it doesn't loop because we need to check loop. Now you'll see this is animated properly, but it's a little fast. So we gotta change the speed down. And obviously the speed doesn't have to be completely accurate to the original. You can make it whatever speed you want. But something I should note is that the animation that plays in here is slower than what Clickteam's really gonna play. So when you're setting speeds in here, make sure it's a bit slower than what you actually want. I think this is pretty good for me. And again, the sprites send themselves off into the oblivious for no reason. So now we have everything for the background. So let's set this up. Let's drag up the water here and make sure it gets all those little areas while also still staying in the frame. Try to put it on the very edge here, because like in the tutorial before, we're still going to add the scroll effect. And this time they will be scrolling at different speeds. It's only 2 sprites. Now if you can find a Green Hill sprite sheet that has the clouds cropped out, then you can also set those to different speeds. If you want to chop the water up into different frames, you can make those move at different speeds. But I'm just going to make it simple for this tutorial. And also name your objects. That's That's probably good, so that way you don't have like 72 active objects. For the water here, you'll notice it's not covering the whole frame, so what we want to do is clone the object. 2 for the columns and 1 for rows. So now you'll see it'll cover the whole frame. And if we play this right now, you will see it's looking pretty good. Water's playing. You can see it is a bit faster than what it was before. And you'll notice the waterfalls are frozen here. We need to do something about that. Now something you can do is when you go on here, you could try to crop out the waterfalls and then try to have them as a separate object to follow that. I don't really like that because sometimes it can get off course and then not stay in sync with the rest of the background. So the easiest thing to do would be go in here, find the waterfalls. Now so far the background I have only has the small waterfall, so I'll only need to worry about these here. If your background has any of these other waterfalls, you'll have to worry about them too. But mine only has the smaller ones, so I only have to worry about these. So when you select these, Control C to copy and paste them, and then we want to go in the background here, create a new frame, paste them, and just crop them down to make it easier, so that way we just have them here. So in here what we want to do now is copy this 4 times, because that's how many waterfall frames there are. Now obviously the first frame we don't need to worry about anything because they already have their frame. And just note that the frame that's in here right now is this frame. So this third frame right here is this waterfall frame. Just note that. So that way, like this one, this next one here will have to be this one, then it'll be this one, then this one. The order, I don't know why it's like that, but oh well. So obviously the first frame we don't really want to do anything, but the second frame we want to go into here, copy, select most of this. You don't have to select the whole thing. Why I said you don't have to select the whole thing, because watch what happens. We paste it, we try to get it on there, but then it's covering some of the trees. Now the best way to fix this would just be to erase the back here. Just keep erasing it to the point where until the rocks start to like lay perfectly on there. Now here it's not really that much of a problem. So now, scroll back and forth through them to make sure the rocks aren't changing a bit. So they look good. So now over here, pretty much want to do the same thing, except not on frame 3, on frame 2. Try to line it up, and then if there's anything back here, just erase it, and then just keep erasing until the rocks seem to be good. I erased some of the water, and yeah, don't erase the water. That's gonna mess with the animation, obviously. So now going back and forth, the rocks are fine, the water moves. Now we can go to the next frame and pretty much do the same thing, but we want to go to this top one now. You'll notice how this will become really repetitive. That's alright, that usually happens a lot. So if you don't like that, then you're just gonna have to deal with that. But hey, at least you don't have to watch as much tutorial, because you just do it once and then you got it in the bat. But I would appreciate if you still watch. So now once you've gotten them all in, you'll notice each frame will have the waterfall flow. So once you've gotten all that, then once you're sure that they're all good, that there's no flaws to them at all, you can delete this frame so that way it doesn't get in the way of the animation, and then we need to set it to loop, but then we can play it, and you'll see the waterfalls are animated now. They're a little fast, so we do want to tone that down a bit. And then like I said before, remember what plays in here is going to be faster when we run the application, so make it a bit slower than you want it to be. That looks good. So now we'll go into here, and now all the water's animated, because something I notice in a lot of EXE games, the water is never animated because sprites for the water are hard to find, and even if you find them, if you're a newbie to it, then it can be hard to apply them on there. So hopefully this will help a lot of people with that, and more water can get animated in EXE games, because there's been a lot of frozen water lately. So now we want to make these scroll, and scroll infinitely, which is pretty simple. It's kind of the same thing that was done in the sky here for data select if you watched that hour-long tutorial. So what we want to do is go to movement and go to bouncing ball and only make it go this way. And then for the land here, we want to set the speed to 3. You can play that and you can see, obviously you can make whatever speed you want, but 3 I feel like is the best speed for the land. Then same here, bouncing ball, only go that way. And then you want to make the water a little bit faster to create that depth of field effect to show that the water is closer. So I say maybe try 5. Yeah, 5 would be the best option. Now obviously we have to apply that onto this water here too. So now they'll scroll, but not infinitely. So how do we make it scroll infinitely? Well, it's pretty much the same thing, like I said before, as the sky in here. So if you had seen that, then maybe you'll know. But what we want to do is go and clone one of the waters again. Make sure columns 2, row is 1. Never mind, screw that. Because the Sonic.EXE title screen is only about 10 seconds long, all we can do is really just clone these and make them go further enough to the point where before it can even get to the end, the frame will be over. So you need 4 water sprites here to do that. So it's gonna scroll longer, but it won't have the infinite trick to it. But by the time it comes to the edge here and it starts like going off the edge, the frame will already be over, unless your frame is a bit longer because of some sort of EXE kind of sequence. If it is longer, then you might have to make the infinite effect, unless you want to just make it keep going. Actually, here's what I should say. If your title screen is gonna have like a button that you have to press to continue, then you do want to do the infinite water, because you never know how long a player is going to sit there. But if it's something that'll continue on its own with a timer, then just clone the water as much as you need to. I don't think you'll have to clone the land, so I'm not going to do that for now, but just in case we do, then we will do that. So obviously now we got the background done, it scrolls pretty nice, so now we need Sonic. And that is when our next sprite sheet comes in. The next sprite sheet we'll be using is this Sonic.EXE title sprite sheet, which has all of these right here, and I forgot to select the transparency color, which would be this blue right here. Now you will notice something off about these sprite sheets, how there's this right here, but this is just for the press start button text, which is down here. So if you want to have that in there, you can have that. And there's also this little thing right here, which is for the trademark logo here. I think that represents trademark. I'm not sure. I'm still young. I don't understand government and all that yet. But obviously, if you don't want these here and they're annoying, then the trick you can do is go to show the transparency color, select the transparency color, and then not show it. Get a paint bucket, and now anything you color with the color that is meant to be transparent will become transparent. So that's a cool trick to get rid of these if you don't want them. So that's what I'm gonna do real quick. Just go by and fill all of those in because I don't want them. If you do want them, then you could still fill them in and then just put them there. But the reason they are there is just to mark the exact location and the exact size, so that way people can get them right on. So once we've done all that, now we can actually start using this, but like before, we do want to clone this, and you can see this is a massive sprite sheet, and you know, something I should do, I didn't do before, crop out only what we need. So we only need Sonic popping up in the title here. We don't need any of these down here. If you want to use this logo and the press start button text, then you will need those. But we don't really need these down here, but I'll just keep them in the crop anyway, just to make the sprite sheet smaller, so that way it can fit more on here. But like before, we do want to clone this, so that way we don't affect the original. And now it's the fun part of cropping out each one of these to be the same exact size. This part becomes really repetitive until you've gotten all of the frames here. So I'll show you how to do it once, and then you pretty much repeat that for the rest of them. So what we want to do is copy and paste, And then on the first one here, crop out the first frame, but make sure you crop it out the exact size. Doesn't have to be the same size as the box here. I recommend that it is, but it doesn't have to be. So, but if you don't crop it out the same exact size as the box here, then you'll have to crop it out whatever size you cropped it out for the rest of them. And if you didn't do it to the same size as the box, it can get pretty annoying and you could waste a bunch of time. So the best thing to do would just be cropping it out to the box. And obviously, if you caught anything in there, crop it out. So see, now we have our first frame here. So now in this next frame, we don't want to just crop it out yet, because then we'll lose the sprite sheet and we'll have to go copy and paste it, and that's going to get annoying. So you copy it again, and then crop out the next frame, and kind of repeat that. So we crop it out, and you can see they are the same exact size, so that way the animation will look good. And then obviously before you crop it out, copy paste, and then you can crop out the frame. So it's pretty much just repeating this for every single frame until you've gotten all of them. So now we have all of the Sonic 1 title screen frames here. If we play them, you will see it's quite a mess, because like before, we need to set the origin point. So obviously there's more frames here, so instead of going to each one of these to select this middle part, just go to the first one, hold Alt, and then click this center point, and then boom, you got it. Now obviously that was pretty fast, and it doesn't loop his fingers wagging. So the way to get his fingers to loop like that, we click loop, but we want to go back to whatever frame his fingers start wagging, which is frame 17. So now when he comes up, he'll keep doing the finger wave, but it's really fast. So we want to turn down that speed. That's probably good speed, but remember, the Clickteam will speed it up when it plays it, so I'm gonna do 15. Yeah, that should be good. And again, like all the other sprites, they'll send themselves off into oblivious. So for this here, I actually recommend that you create a new layer right here, and then put this on top of it. So now we want this in the very center. How do we get it in the very center? Best trick is right click, align and frame, horizontal center, and then same thing, but then vertical center. And now you will see, you could almost call it complete pretty much. Now real quick, I think I'm gonna step up the speed on him a bit. Yeah, that's good. So you can almost call it complete pretty much. So now what we want to do is get him to pause a little bit before he shows up, and add a fade in effect. Because if you don't know, Sonic does kind of wait a bit to pop out of the screen until the fade is done. So first I say we add the fade. So to do that, you're gonna need this little extension, maybe not really an extension, just this little extra thing that I was able to get that helps you create the Sonic styled fade. If you just want to do a basic fade in, then you can just go to here and then fade in, or just transition and then pick fade and done. You can do that, but if you want the Sonic styled fade, then I'll show you how to do it. These extensions should actually, I mean this is the object, but it's not an extension. These should be in every single frame. That box is there for a reason. So there we go. So now that'll actually go bigger because it'll line up with this recognizing that it's a bigger one. So this is the object right here. It's a fade.var. You are able to create the effect from scratch if you want, but I've made it easier and I've provided a download for the effect. But I will say that I did not create this effect. This effect is, this effect here, I'm not sure who made this one. This is just part of the massive effect here. We will need this though. And here, the fade is created by Evil Tubby Does Gaming, if that's still his name. So you'll see there's some stuff here, and you are able to do this from scratch, but I've made it easier and just provided a download in the description. Credit to Evil Tubby Does Gaming for creating this. This is what I'm going to be providing to get the Sonic fade right here. It's just a little application with a frame, and when we open it up here, you'll see it fades in, and when we press E, it'll fade out. And see, the object is right here. There are some instructions here of how to use it, so you can read those if you want, but I'll show you how to do it as well. So you'll notice if we go to the event editor, there's some stuff here, but this is to fade it out. This stuff is to fade it out, and this starter frame doesn't have anything in it, so I'm not sure what it's doing. So where's the fade stuff? Where was what I was just showing before? Well, we have to go to the global event editor, which is this button right here, which is a whole different set of editors here. So once you find this, you can just copy this. We can go into our Sonic intro, then go to the event editor and go to its global events here. Now it's already in there, of course, but you can paste it in there and make sure that you have the fade.var object here, so that way it will work properly. But something I should note is that if you paste it in here, then it might not be imported fully. So what you want to do is import new object and then find the fade.var object. Any imported objects will not show on here, so that's why you probably don't see it on here, because it's already imported. But once you've applied this effect, what you want to do now is on the frame here, you want to select the frame, under Effect, go to Edit, and then in the previous video I provided this entire pack here, and I'll provide it again in the description in case you didn't see that last video. You want to go to Shader Pack, I'm wrong, don't go, you want to go to Mega Shader Pack, Other, and then all the way until you see Sonic Fade, and do that one. And you'll see these are the colors you probably recognize. So when we play this now, you'll see it fades in just like Sonic. Now you can see there are color editors here. Yes, this means you can set it to whatever colors you want. I'm not doing that, but you could set the fade to whatever color you want. That's a good way to create maybe the Flash or some other Sonic fades there have been in the past as well. So now we want to get Sonic to pause a little bit before he comes out and wait until the fade is done, because you'll see he comes out a little bit before, and usually in the original game, in the original intro, he does wait a bit. So what we want to do is go to timer. This timer equal to a certain value. We'll do 1 second, and then on here we'll go to animation, we'll do start, and what we also have to do is go to here, not there, I'm sorry, here, start a frame, and we want to stop the animation. So now when we go in, after the fade is done, he decides to come out and start doing that. So now we want to add the music here, which I have the Sonic 1 title music and a download for that I'll be providing below. But on here, on the starter frame, we want to play a sample and then go find wherever your music is, which here it is right here. And something I should note, when you download it, sometimes Clickteam won't fully recognize it because it's downloaded off somewhere. You'll know because when you try to click the play button, it'll just stop immediately and won't play anything. This one though, this one clearly works, as you can see. But in case you click it and then it stops immediately, that means it's not recognizing it properly. What you want to do is open up Audacity, which every computer should have it by default. Just open up Audacity. I'll show you real quick. And in here you want to go File, Import, and then find the sound, which is right here. You want to import it into here, make sure it works, and then you just want to export it and replace the original file. Now I'm not going to do that, but just replace the original file when you export it, and then that will fix it. How does it fix it? I don't know. But hey, it works, so I'll take it. But obviously after you've done that, still make sure that it is working. So it is still working here, so we're going to open that, and that'll be there. So now when we play this, You'll notice when the music is done and we would move on to the next frame, these haven't hit their end yet, which is why, well, now it has, but the frame would have moved on seconds ago. So that's why we don't have to worry about that infinite effect in this one. So now we want to add a fade out for when we want to exit the frame. So the trick to do that is when the timer is equal to, I'll do 10 seconds, which I'm pretty sure that is about when it's done, but just in case, you might have to play around with that value a bit. After 10 seconds, set alternable values, set the alternable values, fade, set that to 1, and then that is when it'll fade out. In fact, whenever you want to fade out the sonic fade, like any line of code you want, have it set it to 1, and that will fade it out. Alright, you see that was a little late, so I'm gonna make that 9 seconds instead. And it will fade out, but you will probably notice it will not go to the next frame right away. So what we want to do for that is, because this is just a timer-based level, we want to wait until the fade is done, which it takes about a second for that fade to go by when it's fading in and fading out. So after 10 seconds, then we want to go to whatever frame we want to go to. So in this case, after the title, we'll just go to data select. So then you'll see it closed automatically, so that shows that it will go to the next frame. The only reason it didn't go to the next frame is because we loaded the frame alone, but it closed on its own, so that's how you'll know that it does work. So now at this point, we've pretty much created the basic Sonic.EXE title screen. So if you want to use this for anything, like maybe save it somewhere so that way you could use it as a template, then I'd recommend doing that. Whenever you're making the title screen glitch out, whether it's for a second part of your game or whether because you're making a new game and you gotta make a new title screen, just so you don't have to remake the whole title screen from scratch and most likely come back to this tutorial, you'll just have it right there. But see, we aren't here just to make the basic Sonic.EXE title screen. We're here to make a Sonic.EXE title screen. So, at this point now, it's time to start making some spookiness to it. So if you just wanted the Sonic.EXE title screen with like no spookiness, then you're pretty much done. You can just leave if you want. But if you do want to add some EXE spookiness, which is most likely the reason you came here, then stick around and we'll get to that. But first we need to get our last few sprite sheets. This first one here is a sprite sheet that does have sprites of Sonic.EXE coming out of the title, which you could try to use those if you want, but we only are going to use the ones where he's moving his finger back and forth. And then we're also going to have the background here, and then we have the title frame here with the Sega 666. And you'll notice the Sega 666 isn't in exactly the right spot we want. Don't worry, I'll show you how to fix that later. But for now, we'll just worry about what we have here. And also, since it says give credit if used, if you're using this exact sprite sheet, make sure you give credit to the original people who made it, which it shows right here. Original ripped by Flair, re-ripped by the green developer, and then edited by Porky Powers. So if you use this exact sprite sheet, make sure you give credit to them, and obviously I'm giving credit by showing them and saying their names here. And then this right here is just a mask for the Sonic sprite here, because we're going to put this on top of this, but then he'll be on top of it, so this is just to cover him up there. The next sprite sheet we're going to be using is, sadly, the only version I could find of it, a low quality version, which is not really to scale. So you might be thinking, why are we using this if it's low quality? Well, because we only want the static here, and static, no matter how low quality, still looks good. If you can find an HD version of this sprite sheet, then you can feel free to like use this as your title, use this as your background, use these if you want, maybe even this right here if you want to, but this is the only version I could find, so that is a bummer. So we're just going to use the statics here, and all we really need is the static, so I'll just start straight up with getting the static here. So we're just going to crop out the statics here just like that, and like with the background before, we'll have, actually no, I'm sorry, we don't want to drag them together. We want to copy and paste, and then for the first frame, crop out this one over here like that, and then crop this out over here like that, and then we can set it to loop, and then like before, make sure that center point's in the middle, and it's only 2 frames, so you can just do that, and you'll see we'll have this static here. But see, static doesn't usually look too good when it's only 2 frames. Usually 3 is the amount of frames you want. And you'll also notice it says you can't run here. So that's a cool little Easter egg there. So if you want to try to get this static to look a bit better, then what you want to do, copy and paste this first frame, and on the copy and pasted version, flip it, and then do the same thing here, copy and paste the second frame, and flip that 4th one. So that way now, text is a little messed up, but you can see the static does look pretty more realistic and better. Now speed here can really be whatever you want. 50 is already a good speed pretty much, since it's just really static. And we want to create another layer for this static here. Put it on a top layer, and then make sure it covers the entire screen here. It can go over the frame if you want, but just make sure it covers the entire screen. So I'm just going to scale it out like that. I wouldn't recommend stretching it, as that can cause some issues, but I'm going to scale it out like that, and then also put that in the middle, so in case you can somehow read the text, at least it's in the middle. So I'm actually going to show you how to create a cool little fade-in static effect, which can already hint that something is wrong with the game you're currently playing. So what we want to do is create a new condition, make it always under the static, go to effect, compatibility, set semi-transparency, and then on here right click on the static, and then go effect again, compatibility again, and then get semi-transparency ratio. And then you want to do add a plus and then +2. This can be whatever number you want, but the higher the number, the faster it's gonna fade out. 1 was a little slow, so I say 2 would be a bit better. So at the start of the frame now, when we run this, you'll see it will fade out to show that there's already something a little screwed up with the game. So that can create a cool little effect to give it some sort of originality, just so it's not a complete clone of the original title screen. But now we want to make Sonic, the title screen, and the background get all screwed up. So how do we do that? Well, first we want to go get, if you have a different sprite sheet or a different sprite that you want to use for the title screen, then feel free to use that. But for this tutorial, I'm going to be using this one right here. So we're going to copy and paste that. And then on the title screen here, what we want to do is create a new animation. We'll just call it EXE. And then set that to clear. Then paste it, make it larger. You'll see it will get pretty screwed up because the transparency color is set to black right now. We want to set it to this red right here. And try deselect it, and there you go. But something you should do to make it easier is just copy one of these frames, put them on here, and then take this, copy it, and then try your best to put it right on top of here. And you notice the color here is a little messed up, so what we want to do for that, show transparency color, select that color, then stop showing it, and then fill the background with that color so it's transparent. So then you just kind of want to line it up the best you can. This is also a cool opportunity to see some of the differences. So now we have that, just make sure you got it right, which we did. And now I'll show you how to move this little Sega 666 to cover this right here. So obviously select it, and I wouldn't do this because then this gets in the background here. So unless you think that looks cool and you want to use that, then you can, but we just want to wipe that and then drag it down. Try to match the position, remember the best you can, but if not, switch back here. And like before when I was making this, it was 1 pixel too high, so we'll just drag it low. There we go. Now they're right on spot. Just so that can look a bit better when transitioning. You'll notice that the Sonic.EXE screen here has the little TM here. If you want to keep that, you can, or if you want to get rid of it so that way it looks a lot more like this, then you can just get rid of that, which is what I'm going to do because I don't want that in there. So you don't really need this frame anymore. So now we have this right here. Also make sure the origin point is still in the same center. So now we want to go get Sonic.exe right here. We only want these 2 finger swagging sprites right here. If you want to have him pop out of the intro like this, then you can use these sprites, but I'm only going over him already being here and then just moving the fingers back and forth. So in here, create a new frame, get them in there, fix the transparency color, which would just be that, but at the same time, I would put in the transparency color of this right here and fill in these little gaps here, and then set the transparency color to this right here. So then we can use this here. This part here is a bit of a tricky part. I want to copy him, but we want to make sure it's the exact same position as this right here. So the best way to do that would be looking at how the pixels align on here. So like say there's an open spot here that is right next to this but not fully on it. That's a good way we'll recognize it. So we'll put them on here. It's this pixel here, and I just realized we can't see it there, so I'm going to keep my mouse on this spot right here. And needs to go down 1, and there we go. That should be the exact position. If you mess this up, then you will have to, I should have said this before, you should have copied this before you put Sonic on there, because if you mess it up, then you will have to like start again and try to get the position right. But just make sure that it's set in the right spot. Let's see. Yep. And we'll cover him up right here later. And I'm dumb, and I should have copied that myself because we needed that. So that was my bad. So it's no big deal. You just have to go get this and pretty much do that same thing we had done before. Simplest thing to do would probably just be copy this frame, then copy that, and then layer it over it again. And Sonic up here, just, I would set that to 1 just so it's easier to see it. Just erase him up here. And then because this will be in the same exact spot, we can simply just select that and delete it because we don't need it. So now we have this here, and just in case I screw it up again, I'm gonna copy and paste that. So now we'll try to get him, the next frame, onto here. Thank God it's only 2 frames that we have to do this. It would be a pain if it was multiple different ones. So I'm gonna do the same thing I did before, keep my mouse right there, and then try to line that up. There we go. That should be right. Make sure the Sonic.exes are lined up, which they are. Oh, and on here, I need to get rid of that so it doesn't like start flashing. So then there's that. So now what we want to do is cover this. So what we want to do is go into here, get this sprite down here, copy, and then go back into here, and then just simply make sure it's transparent, and then just simply layer it over on top so that way it's covering him. So now there's that. We have the Sonic.exe title. So once you're sure that you've gotten it and there's no flaws to it, you can just get rid of these here, and then we'll start worrying about speeds and stuff. So we want to match the speed of his finger swagging when he's done the best we can here. Now you may think that you can just take this and throw it onto here, but see, there's two of them, so you kind of have to be like not perfectly on it, but just close enough to it. So I found out that 17 on both of them does work pretty well, and it does stick. We can watch them real quick and see. Yep, there's that. Yeah, that is pretty close to the speed. Doesn't have to be perfect, and you could even purposely make it faster to add a little effect to it. It's just probably better if you try to keep it the same speed. So now we have Sonic set in there, so now we want to get the background in here. So unlike this one, what we're going to, instead of putting like a new animation onto here, because we don't have the exact sprite sheet and we won't have animated waterfalls just because of this sprite sheet, what we want to do is go to clone. We're going to clone this and then just crop out the whole background and make sure you crop it in the most. Set the center point to the middle. Then we have it right here. We want to set it on the lowest frame here. Make sure it covers the whole screen. Put it to the very edge and set its scroll speed. Well, first we want to add the bouncing ball movement. Make it only go that way. And then set its scrolling speed to 3, which is the same as the land here. So you'll see right now that is going to be there. So we just simply want to turn off visible at start. And then at start of frame here, we want to, under movement, stop the movement. And then now, whenever we want some weird stuff to start happening is when we can do that. So I say the best spot to do that would be when set timer, set it to is it greater than, set it to 7 seconds, and then put it to 10. You'll see why I picked that exact time later. And then also right click here, insert, limited conditions, only one action when event loops. So now right here what we want to do is make it reappear and make the movement start. And then under static, we want to go to effect, compatibility, set semi-transparency, and set it to 0, so that way it'll only play once thanks to this. So we'll set it to 0, and then this will just be counting down and make it fade out again. I'll show you what that looks like right now. You can see it kind of syncs with that final bump there. It might not be perfect, so you might have to experiment around with it. So like 7.5 might be better. And then also one more thing to do, you go to here and change the animation sequence to be EXE. And now we have pretty much created a basic Sonic 1 title screen that will also become EXE now. You can see it's normal for a bit, and then at that bump, you know, I'm going to set this to 0, see if that'll sync better. So static comes up, shows that there's a little bit of stuff screwed up. It's normal for a bit though. And then at that bump, the static pops up, you see it's all Sonic.EXE, then it fades out, and then it's on to the next frame. So that is pretty much how to create both just the basic Sonic 1 title screen, plus having some EXE kind of stuff going on with it. Now, if you want, in an extra tutorial, I'll show how to do some more advanced things, because obviously this is pretty basic right here. It's not completely copying the original, but it is pretty basic and maybe a little old at this point. So in the next tutorial, I'll show you how to do some cool effects and what you should do depending on what type of EXE your EXE is. And I'll go over what I mean by that in that next video, or just in a future video possibly. So thank you so much for watching. I hope this all helped. Also, shout out to this person who gave me the idea to do the Sonic 1 title screen. Please subscribe to my channel for more Sonic.EXE Clickteam tutorials, and I will see you all in the next video. Goodbye.